This is Glendora High School here in Glendora, California. We're not very far from downtown Los Angeles, maybe about 20 minutes on the freeway. What is going on, everybody out there? Lamont at large, always at the scene of the crime. Today's story kind of starts here at Glendora High School. In the 1970s, there was a fresh-faced kid named David Sconce. He went to this school, and he was a star player on the football team, and he had aspirations of going to the NFL, but little did he know he wasn't very good. There's always somebody better than you. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, David Sconce was probably quite popular here at Glendora High School. Well, not with everybody, but I'm sure that he had friends, and I'm pretty sure that he was somewhat of a popular student here. And this is the area where he was born, where he grew up, and where he was raised by his mother, Laura Ann Sconce, and his father, Jerry. His dad, Jerry, was a football coach at Azusa Pacific. It's a school, small college school. I want to say it might be a Bible school, don't quote me. It's about 3 miles or so away from where I'm currently located. And this school is where he was a standout football athlete with aspirations of going to the NFL. Now, after graduating high school here, he got into a little bit of trouble. I don't know why he did this, but he broke into his girlfriend's house and stole some stuff. David, I know you're watching this video. What the hell is wrong with you? What's your problem, man? I don't know why you did that. What, she dumped you and you got mad? I guess I should have watched the HBO docuseries, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to watch it. And after I'm done with this video, I don't think I'm going to watch it. But let me know in the comments if you enjoyed that HBO thing or not. Well, there's a lot wrong with David. This guy has a bad brain, maybe too many hits while out on the football field. I don't know. Anyway, so after graduating school and getting a slap on the wrist from the police department out here for breaking into the girl's house, he goes to Azusa Pacific, where his dad is the football coach. And, his career went nowhere. That's what happens when you get injured. There was an article that said that he tore his ACL. And if that article is true, then that would basically end any kind of career, whether it be collegiate or hopes of becoming a professional athlete. ACL tears nowadays, not the end of the world. Back in the 70s, it's the end of the world. So after his football career is done, he gets a menial job working as an usher at an ice skating arena. And then he would get a job as a car dealer at a casino here in the area. So he's bouncing, from job to job. He doesn't know what he wants to do. And finally, he puts in a application with, I want to guess, I'm just going to guess this. If I find it, I'll put it in the screen. I want to say he put in an application with LAPD. I could be wrong. But he puts in an application with the police department, and everything goes good for him. He passes all the physical fitness tests, which nowadays is not very bad. It's not very hard, to pass that. And he passed the psychological evaluation, which is quite shocking to me. And it's looking like his career with the police department is going to happen. He's going to be a cop. However, there's only one problem. The bad news was that he was colorblind. Yeah, for instance, if you were looking at that Baja Ranch sign, that jalapeno right there, he wouldn't be able to tell that it was red. And he also wouldn't be able to tell that this sign right here has different colors, red and green. And just because of that thing alone, he was refused entry into that police department. So this is Pasadena right here. And across the street, that is the Lamb Funeral Home. So here we are across the street at the place that used to be the Lamb Funeral Home. Looks like it's for sale right now, and it's probably going to be for sale for a very, very long time because they're probably asking a crazy amount of money for it. So this is the place that everybody thinks about when they talk about this story. It has a nice, like, old retro look, and it should, because this place was built in 1929, and this is the building that Charles Lamb built when he started the Lamb Funeral Home. And then when he passed it down to his son, and then the son had a couple of daughters, one of them being Lori Ann Lamb. And in 1982, her, along with her husband Jerry Sconce, they would take this business over. Now, you would want to believe that they would still continue on with the tradition of being respectful members of society, kind of like Lori Ann's dad, kind of like his dad. His dad was actually the president of the California Morticians Society, something like that. And then the son, he would be the president of the Pasadena School Board. So pretty distinctive people, right? But Lori Ann and Jerry Sconce, these people are scum. They're scumbags, and their son David, he's an even bigger scumbag. I mean, this scumbag makes those scumbags look not so scumbaggish. So a lot of bad things happened behind the walls of this funeral home. There's a lot of victims in this case. Right now, it looks like the sign says it's an electrical distributor, wholesale and supply. I think this is also, they do these escape room things or tours or whatever. I might look into getting inside this place in a future video, but I didn't really think it was really important for me to come inside. But this is the former Lamb Funeral Home. And however, all of the scumbaggery from this story would actually occur about 2 miles up the road from where we currently are right now. That's where the story gets really, really interesting. So in 1982, Jerry and Lori Ann Sconce, they take over the family business right here. And, so Jerry, he's telling his son, he's like, hey, your NFL dreams, your police dreams, they're kaputs, they're finished. Why don't you just go to embalming school, and then you can get a job, you can make some good money here. You're not going to be a millionaire, but, you'll do okay. And David doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't want to bother with it. He's not interested in it. He has, bigger goals. But he starts finally realizing that all the, menial jobs that he's been doing for some time now, he's just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I should get involved in the funeral industry. Now, he has what I would call a business mind. Unfortunately, that mind is tainted with greed. So he decides, you know what, I don't want to bother with the funeral home, but he's going to actually go up the road right here, and he's going to lease a crematory from a cemetery, Mountain View. So let's take a quick walk over to that cemetery, and then we'll talk about what happened over there. This is the Mountain View Cemetery here, about 2 miles up the road from where the former Charles Lamb Funeral Home is. This is Altadena, California, and this is where David Sconce's debaucherous, evil acts took place, right on the very grounds of this cemetery. So in 1982, David opened up Coastal Cremations. Okay, so 1982, David Sconce opens up Coastal Cremations. And the first duty as the owner of this business is to get some business. And of course, he has the business of whatever he gets from his mom and pop's funeral home, but he needs to get his own business because he wants to make this work. He wants this to be successful. He wants to make a lot of money, right? A lot of money. So what do you do when you open up a crematory and you want to advertise business, right? So normally in the funeral home industry, on the sad day that your loved one passes away, you go to a funeral home and you want your loved one cremated. So they're going to charge you nowadays, the cheapest one I've seen is $1,000. Sometimes they'll charge you $2,500, even more. And what they do is if you pay the funeral home $2,000, they're not actually doing the cremation. So they're going to subcontract that out to a person, unfortunately, like David Sconce, who has a crematory. So you paid the funeral home $2,500. They probably paid the crematory maybe $500-600, and then they go pick up your body. They take it, they cremate it, and then there you go. So back in the early 80s, the industry in Southern California at the time, it was common practice that when you would pay for a cremation, you're paying a funeral home about $250 up to $1,000. That's how much it cost back then. So they would, contract a crematory and probably pay them about $125. So David said, I'm just gonna, undercut the competition. So he starts sending flyers and letters to every funeral home from San Diego all the way up to Santa Barbara, hundreds of miles of just funeral homes, saying that I have a crematory, I charge $55 for every cremation. On top of that, not only am I half the price of my competitors, but I'll pick up the body for free. I won't even charge you the $10 or $20 fee that they would normally charge. So in the first year, as he's advertising, he's getting his business going, he had about 1,000 or so cremations, right? So now he's making some pretty good money, but that's not enough. And that gas bill of his is pretty expensive. He's looking at the gas bill, and he's looking at these dead people that, that they're in the cold room of this crematory of his. And probably almost immediately, he starts putting 2 bodies in at a time. 2 bodies, 3 bodies, 4 bodies at a time. And then he has these workers, and he's instructing them as things are picking up and it's, business is booming. I mean, hell, by 1984, 1985, this dude is doing about 8,000 cremations a year. And you have vans in the parking lot. It's just a revolving door of dead bodies, and he's just telling his employees, stuff as many bodies as you can. They were stuffing 8 bodies, 10 bodies, 12 bodies, and he even starts having these contests where maybe the winner would get a prize. I don't know. Hey, how many bodies can you stuff in there? All I did 14 bodies. I stuffed 14 bodies and just cremated them. And then as he's doing this, ashes everywhere. And now all the ashes are commingled with one another. One poor soul, his ashes are commingled with another poor soul. You don't know who's who. So he had a general idea of how much ash to give. So females, you would give anywhere from 3.5 to 5 pounds of ash, depending on their size. If it was a man, it's about 5 to 7 pounds, depending on his size. If you had a really big guy, yeah, you might want to add about a half a pound, maybe a pound of ash. It doesn't matter. You had these 55-gallon drums of ashes, and they would just scoop them up with coffee cans and just pour it in the urn, and there you go. They had a cement mixer, some kind of machine like that, where they would grind the bones down into that ash. And business it's out of control. It's how busy he is. And other than him doing that, he would also take any gold fillings, gold teeth out of their mouth. he would take a rusty pair of pliers and just pop it out. He liked to call it making the pliers sing. I guess that was an inside joke for him. And he would instruct all of his employees to get the gold out of their mouth. His bookkeeper at the time in court had testified that he was bringing in $5,000 a month in just gold alone. He had a guy that he would sell, a jeweler in Glendora, that he would just sell him all the gold. And just unbelievably barbaric what this guy was doing. So at this time now, business for Mr. Sconce is literally exploding. And his name is being floated all over the funeral industry, and not for a good reason either. This guy is the pariah of any and all cremators here in Southern California. So Ron Hast, he was a man that owned a mortuary, and he did a lot of business with David Sconce, but maybe possibly he had a conscience, like he just was thinking to himself, how is this guy doing so many cremations? And then of course rumors started being spread that this guy was not doing what was at the time the law, it still is now, that you're only allowed to cremate one body at a time. So Ron, he tells Lori Ann, the mother of David Sconce, he's like, hey, put it in writing that David is only cremating one body at a time, because I'm doing the math. And if you're cremating one body at a time, it normally takes 2 to 3 hours to cremate a body. 2 hours to cremate the body, and then you gotta give the oven time to cool down so you can scoop the ash out. And even if he's operating 24 hours a day, that's impossible. You can't cremate enough bodies. How do you cremate 8,000 bodies a year and you only have 2 ovens? So David doesn't like the fact that this guy is bothering his mom. So he hires a couple of goons to go to his house dressed up as cops. They faked some kind of hit and run accident, and they lure him to his garage and they start beating the living tar out of him. And they took this spray bottle that they had mixed jalapeno juice, ammonia, and vinegar and sprayed him in his eyes and just kicked the tar out of him. Bruised ribs, black eye, split lip. That would be the last time Mr. Hast would say anything bad about the Sconce family. Now, he also had another incident with a man by the name of Timothy Waters. Timothy Waters was a 24-year-old man that was in the industry himself. Now, I'm not sure if Timothy worked for a mortuary, owned a mortuary, or he owned a transport company that would transport the bodies. That's not really clear in all of the articles I read about this story. But Timothy, he's been spreading misinformation, as David would call it, about him cremating multiple bodies. Now, David absolutely does not care if he gets caught, because it's only a misdemeanor if he gets caught. And there's only 2 investigators in the whole entire state of California, or at least in Southern California, that they're the watchdogs that make sure that all crematories are running the way they should, and all the books and the records are up to date and what have you. As a couple times when these guys would get calls from maybe Timothy Waters or maybe somebody else, they would come to the building and David would say, come back with a warrant. Or he would just tell his employees, hey, come back with a warrant, we're not letting you in. So once David starts getting word that Timothy's been, spreading his lies or spreading the truth, he would hire a couple of his old football buddies, his goon squad, who they referred to David Sconce. They had a nickname for him. They called him Little Hitler and Captain Cremator. And this guy would, rule his business with this kind of iron fist, if you will. So in February of 1985, they meet up with Timothy Waters and they kick the living crap out of him. Now, eventually, they would be arrested and convicted of that crime, and then they would go on to testify in court against David Sconce. So they kicked the living crap out of him, and well, he ain't gonna do that again, right? Because he probably doesn't want to, receive that kind of a vicious beating. But as businesses, busy, there would be a slight mishap at their crematory right here on November 23rd of 1986. November 23rd, 1986, it's business as usual at Coastal Cremations. And the boys in the back, man, they're proud of themselves, right? Because they managed, after a few broken legs and broken arms and necks, and the help of a 2x4 or 2 or 3, they packed an oven with 19 bodies. They probably called their boss and they were pretty proud of themselves. We got 19 bodies in there. So they turn on the oven and, their work is done. Let's go smoke some weed. So they would leave the crematory and they went home, or they went outside or whatever they did, and they were smoking weed. Well, the bodies were so packed in that oven that it more than likely blocked the chimney from the smoke billowing out, and it got overheated and it caught fire, and the crematory burned down. And right here where I'm walking across that little street right there, that's where the crematory used to be. Right here, right where I'm standing, this was where David Sconce did all of his misdeeds. So, of course, no longer here, but, and this little side street right here, I don't think it was here at that time. So anyways, the crematory burns down, and, you would think that David would have been very, 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 very upset. And of course, but you can't kick a bad man down, as the old saying goes, or doesn't go. So he would only be out of business, but for a couple months. Now, after, some searching and looking, this guy, he needs to find a place to do his cremations. The problem is, you don't just go and buy another crematory. They're very, very expensive. Nowadays, if you wanted to buy a crematory, even if it was used, like a used oven, their whole system is going to be about $125,000. And so he's going to find his crematory. Well, it's not really a crematory, but he made it his crematory. So he's going to go about 70 miles east of his home to a city called Hesperia and the high desert. He finds a ceramics business that is for sale, or maybe it's for use. Maybe he leased it, I'm not really sure. But they got 2 diesel fueled kilns, and he just found himself his new crematory. We're gonna drive out there 70 miles east here in Hesperia, California. The people in this area, something's weird. It's been going on for the last couple months in 1987. And people have been complaining because there's a business right up the road right here, and there's smoke constantly billowing out of the chimney stacks right there, the smokestacks. And people, they're saying there's like a really, really foul smell. And it's so much burning and so much ash that it's coating the cars and it's coating the windows in the buildings on this very street that I'm walking on right now. So towards the end of December, this man, he calls the fire department, or he calls the city or the county or something, and he says, hey, I got a complaint. There's this business, and it's a really, really bad smell. There's been like, smoke and a terrible smell coming out of there the last 2 months. He says, if I didn't know better, he says, you know what, as a matter of fact, I'm just gonna say it, they're burning bodies in there, which is kind of a crazy statement. And the guy on the phone, the woman on the phone, they're like, well, that's not a crematory, that's a ceramics business. And he says, listen, I was at Auschwitz. I know what the hell I'm talking about. They're burning bodies there. So finally, the assistant fire chief for Hesperia, he comes out here and he knocks on the door of the business. And the guy comes to the door. He's like, yeah, I'm here for an inspection. Now, he doesn't have a search warrant. He's just there to inspect the place. So they say, yeah, hold on. And they just shut the door. So he's waiting out there like for quite some time. And finally, he's getting really, really tired of it. So he calls for backup. So other personnel with the fire department, they come out here to the street. And they're knocking on the door or pounding on the door. They're like, hey, I want to check this place out. We're getting complaints that there's a weird smell. And this guy can smell it. So he really wants to get in there now. So he gets in there and he goes into this business. It's right there in the middle of your screen. So he goes in there and the place is dark. It's hot as all get out and it's covered in ash, soot. It looks like a very unpleasant environment. So he orders the workers there to shut down the kilns that are at this place, because this place is supposed to be like a place where they make like pottery, planters, and stuff like that. So they got these two big diesel fueled kilns that they use to cook the pottery or to bake it, or whatever you want to call it. So they wait for the ovens to cool down. And when he opens up one of the doors to the steel doors to the oven, a flaming foot pops out. Not only that, there's like this weird slick liquid that's coming out of the ovens. That's human fat from all the bodies that they were cremating. And he sees like these big, huge 55-gallon size barrels, and it's full of human ash, jagged pieces of bone, teeth, and prosthetics. What the hell? What kind of freak, weird nonsense is going on? Well, that nonsense was going on right there in that building, right in front of you. That is where David Sconce's macabre the crematory of horror was. 17293 Darwin. And that guy's not winning any Darwin Awards, that is for sure. So immediately when he's looking at all of this nonsense, he immediately orders this business shut down entirely. All right here. Those smokestacks right there, crazy. Crazy what was going out of them. So we're back at the scene of the crime here. So in 1986, David and his parents, they started a company called Coastal International Eye and Tissue Bank, right? So when you die or your loved one dies, you have the opportunity to donate their organs to schools, or donate your eyes for people to have like retina transplants and all that good stuff. So when you die, of course, you got to get a signature saying that, hey, I'm allowing you guys to harvest my loved one's body or organs or donate it to science or what have you. But not everybody was okay with that. So Lori Ann and Jerry there, they said, screw, who cares? So when your loved one would be brought here to the Lamont Funeral Home, they would just go ahead and donate your parts of your body anyway. So they didn't really care. They were forging a lot of people's signatures. These are very, very crooked, dirty people. So in that timeline, within 3 months of them opening and doing all of that, and this is estimated, this is only what's on paperwork, they sold 136 brains, and they were $80 a piece. And they sold 145 hearts. Those were $90. And 100 lungs. Now, I don't know if it's a pair of lungs or one lung. They were $60 a piece. And we only know of the organs that they were selling. I mean, they were harvesting your entire body, perhaps. And a lot of these crooked medical schools, they were turning a blind eye because they know what these guys were doing, and they absolutely did not care at all whatsoever. And also, I forgot to mention earlier in the video, this place was also the ash headquarters, right? So a lot of times when they would divvy up the ashes, a guy that worked as a truck driver would truck in the remains, the ashes, to this place right here, and then if they would have these big barrels, and this is where they would kind of divvy up the ashes depending on how big you were and how much you weighed and all that good stuff. So eventually, when David Sconce was brought to justice along with his scumbag parents, David was charged with unlawful disposal of human remains. He was charged with bribery, forgery. He was charged for beating up Mr. Hast. He was charged for unlawful removal of body parts. And his trial would go on for quite some time, as well as Lorianne's and Jerry's. But also, other than the aforementioned charges, which were well over 65, there could have been about exactly 67 charges, he eventually pled down to 21 of them. But a charge that was later brought upon him, was that of the supposed murder of Timothy Waters. Remember when I mentioned earlier about Timothy Waters? He was a guy that owned, it says online he owned a mortuary, but it also says that he owned a funeral transport company where he would transport bodies. So I'm not sure which one is true or not. But a couple months after David's goons beat him up, he ended up dying of a heart attack at his sister's house while he was babysitting in Camarillo. Now, later on, during the court proceedings, somebody had mentioned that David claimed that he had dropped something in Timothy's water while he was at a restaurant in Semi Valley. Now, an expert had looked at his blood work from the previous autopsy, because before on the autopsy, it said that he had died of a heart attack. Now, Timothy was very young. He was only 24 years of age, but he was overweight. He weighed about 300 pounds. Even though you're 300 pounds, having a heart attack that young would still be pretty rare, in my opinion. So the quote-unquote expert, he would go on to say that this looks like it could be a homicide because he has oleander in his system. Now, oleander is a plant that grows, I'm going to say it's only in California, and it's pretty rare that anybody would die of oleander poisoning. People that get poisoned by this plant, they usually mimic symptoms of a heart attack, where you would have like an abnormal heart rate where it would get really, really slow. So the guy says, oh no, this is a murder. This guy, somebody put oleander in some food or drink or something like that. Now, they had filed homicide charges against David. However, 3 experts who call themselves experts on this particular plant and the effects that it has on the human body, they basically said there is absolutely no proof, looking at the autopsy results and the blood work on Timothy Waters, whether this is oleander poisoning or not. Now, maybe the first guy probably got it mixed up because there's a certain ingredient, and I could be wrong, that I remember reading where heart medication that you would take would kind of mimic oleander poisoning, perhaps in some form or fashion or another. Maybe the two have some kind of similarities. Don't quote me, I'm not a doctor, and I'm definitely not an expert at anything. But the thing is, Timothy didn't take heart medication. So it's just funny how this guy gets beat up and then, he dies 2 months later. However, he was acquitted of the murder. Now, of those 67 charges that David faced, he actually ended up pleading to 21 of them. And one of the charges that he had against him was of him trying to hire a hitman to take out a rival funeral home director. This guy was in the process, his name escapes me right now, but he was in the process of buying a funeral home, and supposedly David had tried to get some of his goons to go out there and take him out or what have you. So David ended up pleading guilty to those charges. He got a sweetheart deal, right? He got 5 years in prison only for all of this nonsense that he did. However, he got lifetime probation, right? So you're on, parole, probation parole. You're on parole for the rest of your life. So he ended up doing about 2.5 years in prison. So he gets out, and then I want to say he had went to Arizona or something like that. He got into some trouble out there. So his record is, garbage in my personal opinion. So I want to say there was a time that he went to jail and then got back out. So this guy ends up moving to Montana. Now, at this time now, he doesn't have to necessarily check in with a parole officer. I believe he has to write a letter once a month or call once a month, something like that. And so, so he does have that charge of, I don't know if it was attempted murder or trying to hire a hitman or whatever. So he has that hanging on his over his head, and it's a 25-year life suspended. That means he can do anything wrong, and he's looking at 25 years to life. So when he's in Montana, this guy, and I don't know what the true story is, but supposedly he stole a neighbor's rifle, and then he goes to pawn it at a pawn shop, and he gets caught for that, and he tells the law enforcement guys over there, oh no, my neighbor gave it to me because there's a lot of wolves in my area and it's to protect my property. Well, they weren't buying it, so they extradite him from Montana back to California, and he ends up getting that 25 to life sentence. However, he would only serve about 10 years of that. And so he did 10 years, he gets out, and then he does the HBO documentary. I believe it's called The Mortician. I have not watched it yet. I'm not going to watch it. This guy's a scumbag. I read some of the excerpts from that interview, and from what they've said, this guy has absolutely no remorse at all for what he's done. As far as he's concerned, it's just ash. It's no longer a human body, which, I'm not saying that he's wrong, but there should always remain dignity in death. And, if you're going to have a society who treats the departed in such an ugly way, then who are we as a society to honor the dead when we would possibly allow such nonsense like what this clown was doing? So David Sconce's parents, Lori Ann and Jerry Sconce, they ended up pleading guilty to forgery for their hand in the whole organ tissue debacle where they were forging people's signatures. They ended up getting sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in prison. They were not convicted of any of the other charges related to the commingling of remains of the people. Now, listen, they knew what David was doing, so they're just as guilty as he is, and they should have totally have been charged for that. However, I guess they felt that the prosecution felt that they didn't have enough evidence to directly, make a case that they were in on the actual process of doing so, but they knew damn well what this guy was doing. So they got the 3 years and 8 months. I don't know how long they actually did time-wise, and then they disappeared. Jerry Sconce passed away in 2019, and as the recording of this video, Lori Ann is still alive and hiding somewhere in Central California. This is the grave of Timothy Waters. This is the man that was beat up by David Sconce's goons and died 2 months later. The question remains, was his death, was it natural, or was it aided by the actions of another man? Now, I'm not here to point any fingers or anything like that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pathologist. I have absolutely no idea. All I know is this man right here died very young. He was only 24 years of age, and he was mistreated and very terribly by a criminal thug scumbag that is one David Sconce. And I'm pretty sure maybe he'll watch this video. I have no idea. I think personally you're an absolute scumbag, and you're lucky that I wasn't the judge in your case, because you would have spent the rest of your miserable, pathetic existence in a prison, which is what you truly deserved. But we don't know. We don't know what happened to this young man. The court said, the experts say, was not a murder. Nonetheless, rest in peace to this man. Okay, guys, I am out of here. I'm hitting the road. The next video is of a woman who, in my personal opinion, I'm not saying that she should have got executed, but she should have spent the rest of her life in prison. But, you know, sometimes when you sentence a woman to die via a noose and to hang from the gallows, people feel that, you know, she's a woman, so she should be spared. And so I'm going to drive about 3 or 4 miles that way. We're going to get started on that video, and it'll be out soon, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Found it interesting. I don't know about you, but I will not be watching The Mortician. I've read enough about this case. So anyways, guys, leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought about the video. Also, tell me if you did watch The Mortician. Tell me what you thought about it. I'm curious. I ain't watching it, but I'll read your comments, of course. Live, not live, still alive by the grace of God. Lamont at large, coming to you from Glendale, California. I am always honored and appreciative of everybody who stops to watch my videos. I know I don't say it a whole lot, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. See you in the next video. Peace out.